I really hope that went live when it said go live or you're live. Anyway, hi, hello, welcome. This is the aesthetic today. This is the vibe. So hey. Oh, I forgot. I only got this much left. I was gonna add a splash of. I don't know why I went for that. I'm like actually listening to something today. Just like I don't know if y'all know like Lo-Fi Girl, OJICL or ICOJL. We'll just say OJL because there's not actually coffee in the iced coffee 6775 because that's the number today, and it was a surprise. So okay, I have to remember that like these aren't connected to this, so even if I get up, you still won't be able to hear me anyway. Okay, one second. Un momento, por favor. Thank you. So, and it's like, oh, I don't know. Okay, maybe I'm trying very hard to not do the dumb thing and make a mess. Like, have you ever, like, I don't know, like you've had too many things in your hands and you're trying to do something, and rather than set some things down, you just like try to do it anyway and you make a huge mess and you're like, I don't know why I didn't just set something down because, like, the smart thing to do. And it's like when you're doing it, you kind of sort of like realize it's a dumb thing to do, but you also think, I don't know, maybe I'm dexterous enough that I won't make a complete mess of things. And then the mess happens, and you're like, yeah, I should have just, Anyway, that's not necessarily the vibe today. I gotta go wash my hands. I'll be back. All right. I feel like interesting smells are happening. So that's what we're gonna do today. This ain't necessarily giving what I was wanting. This isn't a bad combination though. Okay. All right. So yesterday I went out and it smelled even today, yesterday and today, I went out and it smelled of like wet earth and fire. And I was like, there's almost simultaneously this like petrichor, maybe like a woodsy. I wouldn't necessarily know. I don't spend a lot of time in forests. I feel like that surprises no one. Um, anyway, but it also smelled like ash, but the sort of like, like when people burn leaves or something like that kind of ash, not necessarily like charcoal from a barbecue. And I was like, I went to like the store, right? And so the whole time, not the whole time, this playlist is not doing it. Like, I love the aesthetic that's happening right now, and I don't want to not listen to anything. Flow state, here we go. Flow state on repeat, boom bop, boom bap, jazzy lo-fi, something on fly, something. I don't know. Let's see if this does it. We're starting with an ad. Not a good sign. Okay, I think this is it. This is it. I had it on like Nintendo Music before, and it was not giving. What is happening? Anyway, but it smelled more of fire. And today I just stepped out right before I went live, and it smelled more of like earth, but still like kind of ashy. So anyway, when I was on my way to the store yesterday, I was like, what is it? I was like trying to pinpoint it because I was like, am I going live? um, and it was like rainfall after a forest fire. Like fire has swept a place, and now the rains are starting to fall. And so, but it was like still really like smoke and ash, more smoke and ash than wet earth. Today it's more wet earth than smoke and ash. So I was like, I'll use the science tarot because one of the cards is wildfires, and then I'll use the elemental oracle for the same reason. Also, a zero card spread was obviously like use your intuition or meditate on it, or if there's some other form of communication divination, do that. For yesterday's bill with me, right? What I love about this is it is almost ecliptic, right? There's like the light unobstructed, and then there's like the black around it, and it's like, you know what I mean? Anyway, but it is more like silvery. What if there was like a lunar eclipse? Like if we had two moons and one was like smaller and less radiant than the other. I feel like at nighttime though. Anyway, it's fine. Now that we've gotten the prerequisite ramble out of the way, when I was shuffling this, the title card did flip over. It did. Is that it? Wildfire right there at the cut with Earthly Riches. What I like about wildfire with Earthly Riches is it's a part of the cycle. There are certain plants like bamboo, I think, that, and eucalyptus, I believe, I'm pretty sure eucalyptus, I think bamboo, that like recover very quickly after a fire. Eucalyptus wildfire. Eucalyptus trees are extreme wildfire hazards due to their volatile oils, accumulated oily litter, and shedding bark that creates firebrands that can travel miles. While they don't explode, they encourage fast spreading intense crown fires. They are fire adapted, often surviving and thriving after fires, and are considered invasive in California. How are you so well? I mean, I guess you have to be fire adapted when your whole thing is that you help wildfires spread like wildfire. Well, yeah, and California's been having like it seems like every other year California has like really bad wildfires. And if there's a bunch of eucalyptus over there, I guess that would make sense. How did the eucalyptus get in California? Anyway, so 6775 is the number today with a literal splash of alcohol. So we got like mango chili vibes, we have strawberry dragon fruit, berry acai vibes, and a lemonade. Lemonade being the carrier beverage. I need to put my glasses on so I can actually see. I don't know why I keep taking them off. Crystallization, the Emperor. With tolerance of uncertainty, temperance. 414. Crystallization and tolerate. of error, of uncertainty, tolerance of uncertainty. Interesting. Oh, I was also gonna say, we saw the man holding the heart, right? A few lives ago. Yesterday was the Kanafa, the knave, that passed the blood scented test. Stankness, right? And see, I'm gonna have to find something else. Cause I'm not about these ads. Ooh. Okay. That's a little bit more upbeat. Man, see, it can't be too much because then I'll start doing too much. And we've even seen it was like that loving father energy right before. So that's an interesting strain that's been coming out. But I guess like with Easter being literally Sunday, last Sunday, to see a loving father, it's not surprising. All right. 1, 2, 3. And cut. I'm gonna pull the 6th, 7th, and 5th cards from the top. Here, 6 plus 7 is 13, plus 7 is 20, plus 5 is 25. So I'm going to pull the 25th card from here. See, even my window is open. And I feel like it's like embers on the wind. I don't know. It's so weird. So 36 electricity came out. Iching number 36, the energy of Iching number 36 came up. But also we saw card number 36 in some deck. Electricity at the bottom of the deck, the card that just flipped out is Storms. Cleansing, electricity, wildness, 23. It's almost like storms are like free electricity if you can harness it. Right. That's what let's try to focus. Some semblance of focus. And under electricity is dark matter, mystery. What does that even mean? Like cleansing, wildness, revealing mystery. This I'm going to use the mystical shaman oracle cards, which probably comes as a surprise to no one. Not everything has to be a surprise. Not everything has to be unexpected. Not every story needs a plot twist. I don't know why I'm like today. It's like, which it comes as a surprise to no one. Or, you know, I would be surprised if people would be surprised to know I don't spend a lot of time in the forest. Primarily because I don't live near one. If I did live near one, I don't know how much time I would spend in the forest, honestly. I think it may be my preferred. I don't know about a forest proper. Maybe like the edges of a forest. It may be my preferred, like, natural experience. I'm not a huge beach person. I don't necessarily like. I can appreciate walking by and being near water, but I'm not necessarily a huge water person. Parks aren't bad. I think the only thing about a forest is like footing, right? Roots that pop up and burrows dug by animals and other things. Okay, and a cut. The reason why I'm going for this with wilderness and this lady, it's giving wild woman. But the storm is cleansing the wildness from the wild woman and just leaving a mystery. It's fine. I'm not doing ads today. I don't need to wear the headphones that badly. Or, there, I'll just turn it off and leave them on. Every now and then, I feel like the upper majority of the like um, jazzy music playlist study background, I feel like I usually have pretty decent fortune at finding ones that don't have ads or that aren't full of ads, right? Maybe there'll be an ad at the top, but after that, I could go for Lo-Fi Girl, but that's fine. Excuse me. I am going to turn these back on though. The noise cancellation on beats, I feel like it improves my hearing. Okay. All right. So yeah, it's like the storm cleanses the wildness off of the wild woman, and then you're left with, I don't know, she of the mystery. When I first stepped back into my room after like washing my hands or rinsing them, that was more of a rinse than a wash. Um, I almost smelled like chlorine, like a pool, like pool water. Light sun with electricity still at the bottom of the deck. But now transformation and pressure is with that electricity. Six 36 26. The only card missing is 16. Or in this cycle of 6 2 6 3 6 or 6 3 6 2 6 is 1 6. And it's like in electricity, it's almost like you see the person dissolving into maybe light. All right, today I'm not necessarily trying to be on here for like 4 hours or even 2, really. Okay. This will give us, if I can just like get a shuffle without a card coming out. The 25th card comes from here, and then I'll take the 7th card from the top of the Mystical Shaman Oracle cards, and then that's how we'll do it. Right? 6 7 7 5. 6 plus 7 is 13 plus 7 is 20 plus 5 is 25. 2 plus 5 is 7. Cool. So, but I'll do the 2nd and the 5th. Or am I doing the 25th? No, I'll still break it down. So the 2nd and the 5th. 6 7 7 5 2 5 7. 1 2 3 4 5 6. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. 1 2 3 4 5. Right, 6 7 7 5. This time I left them in order. Bottom of the deck is dormancy. Okay. Which is so interesting because we have two of beakers, three of beakers, and then the bottom of the deck is the four of beakers. Alliance, symbiosis, dormancy at the bottom of the deck. The interesting thing about dormancy is it's giving something that is like the dormant cycle of the plant is broken by fire. But since it's a plant, it can't grow in fire. Right. So, like, there are plenty of plants, bacteria, more so plants and bacteria. I don't think necessarily animals, but I'm sure. Yeah, there are animals that have dormancy cycles. I feel like maybe more like insects than like animals, but and it's like certain conditions will trigger the end of a dormancy cycle, which is again it like we've been seeing. First, it was the energy of like why what does something being afraid of spring mean? Well, before spring is winter, and winter a lot of things hibernate, so maybe it's the end of hibernation. We did see even before that the awakener and the lion. Excuse me. So yeah, it's like the fire is the trigger for the end of a dormant cycle. The first card out is the title card. So I saw it at the cut, and then it was the first card. Second card is Alliance. Third card, Symbiosis. Fourth card, Binary Star, the Lovers. Two, three, six. Two times three is six. Meaning if you add two three times or three two times, you'll end up at six. Was that Terrence Howard? Or was it something else? Where somebody was like, how do you multiply by one or like multiply by zero or something like that? And it not be whatever. And it's like to multiply something by one means you have one. To multiply something by zero means you have zero. Multiplication is a truncation of addition. If truncation is the word that I even want, right? Something times something else means you add something to itself that many times. Now, I feel like the more interesting, sort of in a way, thing is that the commutative property or the associative property? I don't remember which one, but it's like number one times number two is the same as number two times number one, right? So 50 times three is the same as three times 50. Like if you add 50 three times, it's the same as adding 350 times. I think also, though, it's adding something unto itself. Anyway, I feel like even here, there is a maturation of some kind of relationship, right? It goes from alliance to symbiosis to the lovers, but in a binary star. See, we've been seeing uh 18 number 30, I think. Emotional attachment clinking. We saw it once and then the energy of it kept coming out. This is something that would be more like interdependent rather than like codependent or independent, right? Because even though they're connected, they're both luminous. Clinging is auspicious if the fire from within burns bright. Both of those are stars. So they are locked onto one another, but not in a way where they don't have their own sort of shine. Cool. So now the second one, two, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the bottom of the deck is wildness electricity, because why wouldn't it be? It's been there the whole time. The first card that came out is volcanoes. It's like, okay, I was going for more of like a wildfire energy. She said volcano. Power, number 9. I feel like we saw 6s and 9s. On one side, and maybe that's the thing, it's like a don't get it twisted type energy, right? Because even though it's this binary star system, if you flip the 6 upside down, like if you separate these two, one, they're still stars. It's almost like a creation of power, but a concentration of power. Because in this wildness, like it's tapped into, but it's almost like harnessed in this power. And again, transformation, pressure is still under this electricity. 36, 26, 9, where we had 36, 26, 6 before. See, literally, like with the transformation, and then you got power. The other card that came out is East Beginnings, which is number 3. If you fold 3 upon itself 3 times, you'll get number 9. So, in a way, the root of the volcano is the East, or the root of power is beginnings. The square root of 9 is 3. Also, with power, right? Because I pulled that after the whole multiplication thing, because 2 times 3 is 6. Um, you multiply something upon itself, or you add something upon itself to get multiplication. You multiply something upon itself to get exponentiation, or the exponent, right? 3 squared is 3 times 3. 3 cubed is 3 times 3 times 3. So 3 squared, being 3 times 3, is 3 added unto itself 3 times. 3 plus 3 plus 3. 3 cubed, it's 3 added. Oh, girl, I feel like I'm like almost trying to get somewhere. It's 3. Girl, I feel like I just had it, and the more I try to, then my brain just like shut down. 3 times 3 times 3 is 3 squared, or 3 cubed is 3 times 3 times 3, which means you add 3 unto itself 3 times. So you have 3, 6, 9, 3, 6, 9, 3, 6, 9, and when you add them all together, you get 27. I feel like we saw 27. I feel like we saw like 9 and 27. Anyway, the sun rises in the east, and we saw that sunlight. Something about this is making me think of that again. And the way that, like, whatever this is, 6 is sunlight. We also talked about, was that in the firmament fundament? That quantum entanglement? This binary star system, that could be like a quantum knot. She's giving lights beyond the far shore, which is also sort of playing into the whole analogs thing. And then the 7th card, okay, the card at the bottom wanted to stay there. All right, I'll keep you on the table. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm just trying to make sure I'm not pulling multiple cards because sometimes these feel a little thick. The Earth Keeper, number 18. 3 times 6, or 6 times 3 is 18. 9 times 2 is 18. So if you add 3 upon itself, but that makes sense. If you add 3 upon itself 6 times, you get the second multiple of 9. But if you add 3 upon itself 3 times, you get 9. Right? So every multiple of 3, so 3 times, 6 times, 9 times, and so on and so forth, you're going to get the next um, multiple of 9. Because 9 itself is composed of 3 threes. Right? I feel like I'm both speaking nonsense and trying to. I mean, the title card is here, so let me not expect anything too forthcoming. It feels both almost like both misleading / distracting and grasping at something, and also like the point that makes me think of education in general, but kind of sort of math in and of itself. In the whole of like, you have to learn the fundamentals of something before you learn that, like, what you've been taught is a lie. And before you build on the fundamentals, it's like when you're first learning subtraction and they tell you that you can't take a big number away from a small number. But then after a few years, that's par for the course, and you learn about negative numbers, right? You learn that you can't, just like subtraction with division, you learn that you can't divide a small number by a big number until you learn about fractions, right? And then when you do learn about negative numbers, typically you learn about negative numbers after. Girl, I don't know if things have changed. I'm sure things have. Usually you learn about multiplication before you learn about subtraction. My auntie is visiting. She just got back. Um, so yeah, usually you learn about multiplication before you learn about negative numbers, right? And then when you introduce negative numbers into the equation, Pun not intended necessarily. Pun not consciously intended, no. But appreciate it. Um, then you have to learn about the interactions when you multiply negative numbers, right? And so, sorry. See, this is probably why I should have been less time on the noise cancellation. Is it 2 taps? Yeah, okay. I haven't used Beats in a minute. Um, so, yeah, you learn about multiplication before you learn about negative numbers, and you learn about multiply. And it's something about like building up the fundamentals before you can go beyond it. But it's also about understanding the fundamentals in a way, or revisiting the fundamentals in a way that takes you back to what it means, right? It's like you learn addition, and even that, it's almost like at some point you learn addition and then you learn multiplication. You learn addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, right? Multiplication is sort of the only one, and division by extension, but not really. Multiplication is the only one where like you memorize it to have like shortcuts. And then with the way that multiplication works with like, and even division works with larger numbers, you do it sort of like step by step piecemeal. You break it down, right? So when you do like 3 times 3 is 9, 7 times 12 is girl beyond me. Why did I do that to myself? Is it 74? Because I know 12 times 5 is 60. And then if you add, oh, 84. 12 times 5 is 60. If you add 24 to that, it'd be 84. Okay. Goodness. Um, but yeah, because I remember like you do the times tables, right? And so it's almost like in memorizing multiplication, sometimes maybe we forget or we don't go through the process of like 7 plus 7 plus 7 plus 7 plus 7. And so maybe that's why it's important to revisit the basics or to be reminded of the basics. Because again, I don't remember what specifically it was, and it's more metaphorical than anything. It's like we, I'm not coming for nobody, girl. I'm not Neil deGrasse Tyson. And I'm not coming for Neil deGrasse Tyson. It's, it's just like we can not try really hard to be profound. And maybe I'm reading myself. But it's like when we forget what the basics mean or what the fundamentals mean, then it can become really easy to reach things that are both like profane and profound, but profane in a way of like it doesn't make sense. Because if you go to back to the basics, anything multiplied by one is just having the number itself. And if you go back to the basics, anything multiplied by 0 is to not have the thing at all. You add 6 0 times and you get 0. You add 6, like you don't even add anything to 6 and 6 times 1, it's just the 6. Right? And what I love about this alliance and symbiosis, if we're talking about the lover's binary star, is us as we have a body, a heart, a mind, and then we have a soul. And that body soul dynamic, right? It's like the body is an alliance, between you, your organs, the bacteria inside of you, and I guess that's more symbiosis when it comes to like the bacteria inside of you. But I don't like it feels like there's something here. Like, I am low key like, wait. It is in a way, just because of how I'm approaching it or how it's. Oh yeah. That was a little bit of a hard crunch. It's because of the way we're approaching it. That's why it's giving math, where it's like you have to like learn this, learn this other thing, and then you build upon that knowledge to get to some kind of deeper truth. Or it's not that you have to learn the lie before you can learn the truth, but it's about setting the foundation. It's about us sort of not getting ahead of ourselves and reaching beyond our understanding. And it's anything where, like, that's why it's really important to have a solid grasp of the basics, to have a solid foundation in what is sort of rudimentary. Because it's like you want to encourage curiosity and exploration, but at the same time, without a solid grasp of the foundations, fundamentals, we can, in seeking something profound, end up somewhere profane. And it, like those kind of sort of like profane feels like a loaded word, high key. Um, but um, yeah, it's just like that's why you sort of withhold certain things because then it'll make more sense. Or it's like you have enough. It's almost like if someone, now it's like an architectural example, and I know less about architecture than I feel like everything else. Civil was not my bag. Although it's like I feel like civil girlies can low key go like everything, almost everything has infrastructure. You know what I mean? And even if you're out on a farm somewhere, you still like who's building the houses? You know what I mean? When it comes to like gravitational forces or whatever, it's like if you've only ever built single story buildings, then it's like there are so many principles that you don't necessarily have to take into account because it's a single story building. But when you go to constructing skyscrapers or like multi storied buildings, now you have to worry about a foundation that's strong enough to support the weight of everything on top of it. And you have to worry about maybe depending on the geography of the area, like if there's an earthquake or a tremor, like how the building sort of maintains its integrity as the ground beneath it is shaking. And again, when it's a single story, you don't necessarily have this Jenga tower of a disaster sort of waiting to happen because you have blocks on the ground, right? So it's almost like in not even, it's like in learning how to build a single story, sometimes we can jump to trying to construct a multi-story whatever, or even if we've already learned how to build a single story, it's like there are things about the fundamentals that we kind of sort of gloss over because they don't necessarily apply in the same way. as they do when it's like a multi-story experience, right? Again, with multiplication, we learn what multiplication is, but after that, we just memorize the tables. Unless, maybe we do some crazy multiplication. But even that, again, that's based upon memorization, right? When I just did 12 times 7, and I was like, well, 12 times 5 is 60, and 12 times 2 is 24. So 60 plus 24 is 84, because 5 plus 2 is 7, right? And even if you're writing it out, like you break it down by the tens place, ones place, hundreds place, whatever, you still do it in memorizable parts. So, does that have to do with this? I don't know. Maybe it's not about meaning. I didn't even finish the thought earlier. The way that this is like sort of being broken down, I feel like I should go back and watch the Rare Gazelle's 8 Babylonian Gates, because it is low key. I'm pretty sure it was Gate 5 with Goddess Aya, where it was like, it sort of like started at the roots, or at some point it became about the roots of, or the origins of a thing, right? And there's something about, but maybe even the nuance of it, right? Because if you go back to the basics, if you adhere too strictly to the basics of more specifically metaphorically mathematics, like there would be things that you limit yourself from being able to do, right? Again, with the whole, you can't take a bigger number away from a smaller number. Like if in a return to basics you forget about like fractions and negative numbers, then you would be limiting yourself. So it's almost like, but maybe that's, while it can be like the danger of multiplication and division, because even when you divide, like long division, right, you break it down just like you do with multiplication. Um, anyway, it's like the good, the day. Well, yeah, while there was the danger of the remembrance of multiplication, when it's like you get like, well, how does, again, that's just like the example that comes to mind, and I don't even know if I like watch. I'm pretty sure I didn't watch the whole thing. It was just a clip where it's like multiplying by something by one is just like the thing itself, right? And if we go back to the fundamentals of multiplication, we would know that. We would remember that, or recall that, or keep that in mind. We would center that more. But there's also like a gift to it, and the whole like remembering that negative numbers and fractions are a thing. So it's almost like this relative within the scope of a situation. It's this relative, the fundamentals of multiplication are different than the fundamentals of addition. Or learning advanced, how do I even say that, advanced extensions, learning, keeping in mind extensions of the fundamentals. Like if negative numbers are an extension of subtraction and a negative number shows up somewhere, then even when you're going back to the, it's knowing how to break something down. I don't know. I feel like I'm almost low key confusing myself just trying to, but that's just like the nuance, the trick to it, right? I don't know why the search key was here. Excuse me. Where is the Ring of Fire? I think that's to the west. That's like Hawaii, right? I mean, if you go far enough east, you'll end up in the west. Ring of Fire. It's a horseshoe shape. What's in the middle of the Ring of Fire? Hold up. I don't have enough brain for this. It's just like it's a map in a way that I've never seen it. I feel like usually when I look at maps, North America and South America are on the left, and then everything else is like on the right. And so to see like Asia and Australia on the left with North America on the right is like, so it's only a horseshoe shape, almost sort of the mirror of it. It's around the Pacific Ocean. There we go. This is it's breaking my brain. Oh, excuse me. But again, it's almost very at the same time. It's like with a certain viewpoint, it looks broken. But if you were to shift it, then you could like see it as that's why I was like a horseshoe shape. What? So wait, that is east. No, no, no. Pacific is to the west. I know. The way I remember is like there's the Pacific Ocean and then there's Pacific time and then there's the Atlantic Ocean, but that's the Eastern time zone. That's how I remember. Atlantic is in the east, Pacific is in the west, relative to like North America, I guess. Because in the US, we have Pacific, Mountain, Central, Eastern time zones. Anyway. Oh, what was this? The staff, number 51. 5 plus 1 is 6. The third, 18. I mean, but that's the thing about because 6 is the second multiple of 3, 9 is the third multiple of 3, right? So every 6 multiples of 3, they'll converge, right? 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18. 6, 12, 18, 9, 18. And then every 6 threes, 3 sixes, and 9 will converge. So there's also, well, maybe convergence is important because again, we have alliance, symbiosis, and this binary energy. It almost feels like I don't know if we're getting into the test lab at all. Like you can map convergences with application of the fundamentals. I feel like this is one of those ones where I'm just like, I mean, the title card was the first card. And again, it's like sometimes in seeking things that are profound, or sometimes with an eye on the profound, we can forget the fundamentals to make um, to pose questions that are easy to answer or that we already know the answer to. We can forget that we know the answer to certain things. And so sometimes, too, it's about understanding the nature of a question, which is like, that's the good thing about, I want to say, an engineering education. But it's almost the same as Duolingo. And maybe that's kind of sort of the thing about education is that sometimes we take things at face value, or sometimes we don't see the larger applications of a thing, right? Like if you're learning something as a girl, as someone whose brain operates in metaphor, and also someone who has studied not profusely multiple languages, like I took obviously English and grammar, which remains. Sometimes it's the language that you natively speak that's the hardest to understand the nuances of, which makes sense. Unless your parents are like grammar teachers and everyone that you surround yourself with is like, keyed into the properness of it all. I don't know why I said it like that. Like you pick up like a colloquial question mark, spoken, like the point of communication is to share a thought. And if you can understand what I'm trying to say, then effective communication has been had and proper grammar was unnecessary. Right. Anyway, English, Latin in high school with a semester of Russian and Japanese that I would barely count, which was like learning a few words and dipping a toe into cultures and like learning to read the alphabet. Then Chinese for a quarter, Mandarin, and then Japanese in high school, Spanish on Duolingo, and also elementary school, and now Hindi on Duolingo. But it was like after taking like Chinese and Japanese, it was like seeing how different languages handle different pieces of the language equation, like your articles and your prepositions and your whatever. It's almost like I'm sort of sensitive to it now in a way where, like, if I see it on Duolingo, I can pick it up, right? Because I took Spanish, I've learned like gendered sort of words. Because I took Latin in high school, like, you decline and conjugate, right? You conjugate verbs and you decline the nouns. So going from declensions and conjugations to just conjugations, I'm like, oh, this is easy, right? I don't have to remember like a I R is as is. So if the noun is like puela, girl, and it's like a is puela 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 puelam puela, and then plural arum is as is puelam puelarum puelis puelas puelis, or puer. I feel like puer or boy is like different because it doesn't have anything on the end of it. I don't remember. Anyway, it's like with all of those things in mind, it actually helps me learn quicker. And then so at the same time, I'm not expecting an app to teach me like every single word in a language. You know what I mean? Because that's kind of like it removes thought from the equation. if it can teach you like sentence structure and grammar, I feel like a dictionary or conversation can take you sort of like further. You know what I mean? And the same with like sort of like, and that was the jump between sort of sophomore year and junior year. Was like freshman year and sophomore year was a lot of like memorization, learning the fundamentals and stuff like that. It was a lot of simplifying assumptions. It was a lot of like you can't take a bigger number away from a smaller number, and you can't divide a smaller number by a bigger number. And then you start to sort of be presented with problems, right? Junior year. And that's when you sort of have to question your assumptions. Or where you have to do both. You have to question your assumptions and you have to remember cases in which you can make a simplifying assumption to make the problem a lot simpler, right? Like, I can't think of specifics. I had some in mind, but, and so it's like, that is the thing about like learning how to solve a problem. That's like, that's when it really starts to happen. And like, they teach you guess, I feel like way before junior level. Guess is like if you're breaking down a word problem, like you have your givens, your unknowns, your equations. I feel like it's what given, unknown, equations, substitution, solution, maybe. There's the information that you know, the information that you don't know, equations that are applicable to the situation. And then into that equation, you substitute the things that you know, and then you solve for the things that you don't know. And it's that whole, it's like at the same time that you're doing that and you're learning it sort of in the classroom and in that setting, it's also teaching you how to like break down real life problems into manageable sort of chunks, right? And so sometimes, like the reason why junior year I feel like was so hard was again, it seemed like before that you were kind of sort of told or given, like use maybe within the context of like what you learned recently and what is being tested for, right? It's like use this equation or this set of equations, right? Or like you're more explicitly told like you cannot make this assumption or the system is not at equilibrium or the system is not at, there's like a few different kinds of equilibrium, right? There's like isothermal where the temperature stays the same. There's isobaric where the pressure stays the same. Um, there's also like adiabatic where the heat in this in the system is constant. Is that what adiabatic means, girl? It's been a hot minute, but it's like you're told, and so you know. Adiabatic. An adiabatic process is a thermodynamic change where a system gains or loses no heat to its surroundings. There you go. The heat within the system stays the same. I'm like, okay, I remember. And so it's like you're explicitly told within junior year, it's like you have an insulated whatever, and this and that are happening. Well, since it's insulated, you know that it's not gaining or losing heat to and from the environment, gaining or losing from and to the environment. So that tells you it's an adiabatic process. So you go to your adiabatic equations. Or it's like there's this temperature change and the pressure is maintained at whatever. That tells you it's isobaric, right? It's like you have to pull from, use your knowledge and fundamentals and the things that you've learned to break down the thing in almost like digestible pieces. And that sort of sets your spectrum of relativity where it's like, okay, here, like pure fundamentals of this, advanced applications of that, this intermediate whatever here, and this stuff I'm not too familiar with. So we may have, that's where the experimentation might occur. Or we can try it with this set of assumptions, we can try it with that set of assumptions. Or again, you sort of like get into, well, like, what does it mean for something to be adiabatic? Well, that means that it doesn't lose heat to its energy, to its environment, and it doesn't gain heat, thermal energy from its environment. Well, what does that mean? Well, it means that it's probably insulated, right? At least thermally. I don't know why this is. That's where we are. This is a heart. I don't know why I was seeing that as like a knot before, or like a H2O. Like this was like three balls. Maybe because of the shading on the heart. Yeah. And I don't know if it's like the fundamentals of you. Under the staff was the Time Master. 51, 57. 57 minus 51 is 6. 51 minus 57 is negative 6. That's the lovers either upright or in reverse. See, even this. Can you see? Kinda. Because it's a difference of 6. It's something about the tool, like the instrument and the user, as this sort of binary interdependent whatever, right? There are things that instruments make easier and tools make easier, but they only work if they're used properly, right? And so there's a sort of trust that a tool or instrument will do what it needs to do, just like the instrument trusts its user to properly utilize it because it can't utilize itself, right? And again, we have, oh, that's a not a deep cut. Where was that? Was that in the? I think that was in the Dreams of Gaia tarot. I feel like that was back when I was at my apartment, which was 23, 24. So 2 to 3 years ago, where it was about like focus, right? It was like the magician went from the staff to the orb to maybe not needing anything at all because the tool, the focus, channels or parses or accumulates energy that is then used. Like there's a few different magic systems that I've seen where like you have wizards or whatever and what their wands or staves or orbs do. And some of them, it's a conduit to tap into the energy of like ambient energy of the surrounding universe, right? And some of them, it's used to like channel the internal energy at, of the its wielder and then to like exert it, right? It's a focus. Focuses the of all of the magic into one thing and then you know, fireball. Shout out to yeah, my journey buddy. I was like, she sent me the song. It was Pitbull Fireball. I'm listening to it. I'm like, what is this? This is not necessarily. I'm glad I didn't dig into it because that would have been derailing. I'm like, what? No. Yeah. So in both cases, because again, this is like East and volcanoes, the beginnings of power. And then maybe that's the thing too. Because to see the time master and the staff, it's almost like the user and his instrument, or the user and their instrument. Getting back to the fundamentals of whatever magic or however magic manifests in that world, and how the tool, the instrument, helps the wielder tap into or exert or make do magic, right? Because that will affect, or that can inform what advancement looks like. If the tool is one of gathering ambient magic in the environment, then advancement could look like being able to directly access, or being able to focus that ambient magic without the instrument, right? So instead of having a basically like a charcoal wand, would it be charcoal that like absorbs all the moisture in the air? That metaphor broke down immediately. But if that's the thing, then it's like it's learning to within the palm of your hand, just like pull all the moisture into a ball, right? Rather than having this stick that can do it. Or on the other side, if the tool is a focus, then it's like rather than holding on to something that draws all of the magic from one's body, it's learning to like channel it and focus it into like a specific part of one's body. And that's what advancement would look like. Right. And it's almost like metaphorically, of course, results could be disastrous if you try to apply the theory of advancement from one situation to another. Right. Because, and I'm trying to, there's almost like on one sort of sense, in one way, it's like if ambient magic is a thing and the staff taps into ambient magic, it's like then at the point where it's like learning to gather like the water vapor into a ball in one's hand to use the water ball spell, rather than a staff that like condenses and coalesces all these like water vapor into droplets and stuff. Then it's like if you were to apply that to the other one, where it's about sort of like focusing and channeling your internal into a singular point, then it's almost like someone that could drown in their own skin, because it's like they would, and trying to apply what is useful for ambient magic to, I don't know, personal mana stores. It's almost like they would like pull the water into their body and then try to like focus it, because like with how their system works, it comes from the inside and the staff draws it from inside. So for the ambient magic to get inside so that it can be drawn into the staff, you see, it's like this whole convoluted. Then it sort of becomes more so a knot in these two things. And the one, like, obviously, and I've talked about this before, like in the black clover of it all, that's sort of what happens, right? There's one kingdom that's all about someone's like personal mana. And that's how that's like what value is based off of in their society, basically. But then there's this other kingdom where they tap into ambient sort of magic or ambient mana. And of course, the better the channel, it's like so abundant and rich that it's a lot more powerful there because you're not only relying on your personal reserves. And then there comes the point of integration where you learn to use your personal reserves, but also tap into free resources around you, available ambient resources around you. And the metaphor of it all, is this an hour and a 20-minute way to? Because I feel like recently, maybe not the last life, maybe the one before, where it was about parallels. I think it may have been the one before, when it was like, if this person gets over their arachnophobia with exposure therapy, then maybe I can get over my trypophobia or trypophobia with exposure therapy type energy. But so it's like if you dig into the, I'm not a therapist, I don't, or a psychologist, girl. What do I know? I know even less about that than I do infrastructure and architecture. Um, but it's like, why does exposure therapy sort of work in a certain situation, or how was the trauma formed so that exposure therapy would be a good solution, or at least a good method to try, right? And it's almost like there's a difference between an exposure that's like someone that's never interacted with something, right? And so there's almost like a natural healthy amount of anxiety or fear or worry about stress in a situation that someone's never been in versus like someone that's been in a situation and had a very, very, very bad time, to the point where even mentioning the name of something or catching a whiff of the smell of something or catching a glimpse at the sight of something can cause a full, like, you know, anyway. Maybe this is more internal, external. Symbiosis is, well, maybe not. Anyway. Apparently, somebody's stuck on Nintendo today. Swords, wands, pinnacle. Wait, wands, pinnacle, swords, cups. Cups are the last before the majors. Benzene Dream. Two of Cups Alliance. I'm just gonna read them. Lichens are in a relationship so simple and effective that change becomes unnecessary. That line is so interesting because I feel like we just saw, like, if the nature of the universe is change, then the only constant is our need to adapt to change. But this is something where change isn't even necessary. Hold up. Hold up, hold up, hold up, hold up, hold up. Y'all know what time it is. I gotta check and see if the food texts are going on. Even though it's 9 o'clock, so probably not. Anyway, lichens are in a relationship so simple and effective that change becomes unnecessary. Some lichens have remained essentially unchanged for many millions of years, perfectly suited to play their quiet, critical role in the ecosystem. In lichen, a fungus and an alga, I know it's alga, maybe. A fungus and an alga are integrated at the cellular level, yet they remain separate life forms. The fungus provides a helpful structure for the alga, while the alga uses photosynthesis to create food for the fungus as well as itself. Allied in this way, they flourish in the most forbidding environments, chewing away rock to make soil and paving the way for diverse ecosystems to take hold. Here is a relationship that is balanced and effective, but perhaps confining and stagnant as well. Do we cling to this comfortable stability or follow a risky path of growth and change? The exquisite variety and breathtaking beauty of orchid flowers have long inspired gardeners to plant orchid seeds in cultivated soil, yet early attempts to grow these exotic plants met with failure. The missing element was the unseen fungus mycorrhiza. I know rhizoid, mycorrhiza, which lives in the orchid's native soil, helping the orchid roots to absorb water and minerals. In return, the orchid provides the fungus with sugars generated by photosynthesis in the plant's leaves. With the fungus to aid the orchid in extracting nutrients from the soil, the plant thrives and the fungus benefits as well. Some partnerships are unable to flourish and reach their full potential without another factor, an unexpected helping hand. Great vitality and beauty can be achieved when a new influence completes the equation, allowing every member of the team to grow and benefit. And then the binary star. Look, it's getting a little warm. Two stars orbit each other in a delicate balance of gravitational attraction and angular momentum. Gravity was behind mystery, maybe? Yeah, I think gravity was behind mystery when it was cleansing electricity and mystery. Anyway, excuse me. A bit closer together, and they would crash into each other. A bit further apart, and they would be flung in opposite directions. These two heavenly bodies together, pushing and pulling each other as they spin, can form the center of a single solar system of orbiting planets. The levers have reached the point of balance, and together the two separate stars form one radiant entity. This powerful relationship is represented by an infinity symbol and a fierce heart of fire, signifying a passionate romance, intimate partnerships, and the weighty choices they demand. Weighty choices they demand. Weighty choices of passionate romance and intimate partnerships. And, excuse me, maybe the title card preceding all that is just us sort of like finding where those boundaries are with the gravitational and angular momentum balance of um, the binary star. It's the also the balance of like comfortable structures effective structures, tradition, maybe, and change. And then also an understanding, a deep understanding of what helps one thrive, right? That's the orchids, the symbiosis between the mycorrhiza and the orchid. The mycorrhiza help the roots of the orchid take up nutrients. The thing about lichen was that stability and change. And it feels like whatever word they use, the weighty choices, it's like these are two separate suns, right? So when it comes to partnership, each it's like there's an interdependence there. But to be interdependent, there has to be a certain level of independence or intradependence, right? Interdependence thrives where there is also intradependence. It's people that can depend on themselves and depend on another, right? It's like if you can depend on another but not yourself, then maybe that dips into codependence. And if you can depend on yourself but not another, then that will probably create a frustration that eventually leads to independence, which may eventually lead to a separation or not. Maybe one person will be independent and the other person will be codependent, or a codependence. But in a codependence, neither can rely on themselves. And so it's almost like maybe that's when those two binary stars collapse into one, but in a way that is like not sustainable. They each balance their own forces. Excuse me. Sure, let's just keep reading. Why not? Even though I don't necessarily, why not? I opened a pressure. You can view pressure as being negative, or you can see it as being a shaper, director, or positive influence. Find a medium. Find a happy medium where you can benefit and not be disadvantaged. The energy of happy mediums. Is that somebody's channel name? The Happy Medium? I don't know. 3 and 9. Oh yeah, I should have remembered that. Volcano power. Old grudges should be released and let go. Heavy energy hurts us. I'm like struggling to read. Maybe it's all the background. Old grudges should be released and let go. Heavy energy hurts us should we hold it for too long. Allow your anger to flow through you rather than saving it all up for an explosive release. Reformation may be necessary. Sometimes the greatest powers are hidden from view. You have the power to create or destroy. Um, oh, here we go. Oh, this is a lot. East beginnings. Worry not, a new dawn is breaking. Let go of the old and embrace the new. Flow forward without heaviness or anxiety. New ways of being are calling to you. Speak up with a clear voice. Do not resist change. I love that, like, they both say let go. Also, I love the new dawn from the Dawnbringer. Cool, cool, cool. This Earthkeeper is the one that maybe it just like keeps it together on Earth. Oh, maybe this is the result of cleansing the wild woman. Maybe a cleansed wild woman is this Earthkeeper. Still mysterious. Excuse me. Cleansing the wildness, retaining the mystery. Okay. All right. I don't know what this was. Well, it almost is also reminiscent of the whole spheres of influence between vengeance and punishment. And also, in a way, it reaches out to the whole where that broken heart is, and when the door to spirit cracks open, the spirits that reach for us and the spirits that we reach out to. And it does that in terms of like remembrance, right? Or the foundations and the basics, right? If we seek power, be it financial slash economic or political, for the purpose of like bringing visibility or healing or something like positive to a community or to a family, right? Like if someone wants to lift their family out of poverty. And so that's why they pursue financial slash economic power. It's like to remember that when the money starts flowing. That like that was the point and purpose of it. And so even when someone is like making deals, or considering partnerships, collaborators, whatever, it's like remembering your why so that you don't get caught up in the storm of all of these like new beginnings or all of these changes. And with this like symbiosis, it's like there we may not see healthy relationships with power or with money or with other things a lot, but it doesn't mean it's not possible. Like there are wealthy people who can still be like generous and kind. There are politicians who can still be honest and like do right by their constituents. There are people in influential positions who don't abuse that influence or authority over others. And even if there aren't, doesn't mean that you can be. Right. And maybe that's again the thing with the staff. Because the position, the money, those are like tools. They're the instrument of change that the agent wields to implement it. The agent of change being the time master, the staff being the instrument of change. Or, yeah, that's where we'll leave it. And even with the beginnings of power, sometimes, oh, look, there's the rattle, which is like the shorter staff. Um, Sometimes, what was I about to say? Yeah, sometimes we forget, like when we see the person or the personage, we forget what the roots of that power sort of like are. The beloved and the sweat lodge. 545 or 554. 5555434 mini paths with the sweat lodge and the beloved. Um, yeah, like with the man holding the heart. I remember hearing the phrase "absolute power corrupts absolutely." Like there are a few phrases where I'm like, that's just people. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. Opportunity makes a thief. Stuff like that. It's like if all you needed was power to go on whatever. It's not like that's the truth of who you are, but it's like it reveals. Sometimes it reveals who and what a person truly is. Sometimes it reveals not a shortcoming. Maybe it just like reveals that someone's like lost touch with themselves. Or like there's the positive revelation and then there's like a negative revelation. Because in the one that more so came out was a positive one, right? With the beloved that still holds on to their heart. There are kind, generous people in positions of authority, in positions of power, in positions of influence. We may not necessarily see a lot of them. And so that may make it seem like they're few and far between. But even again, even if there aren't, doesn't mean that you couldn't be. Maybe that's what's revealed. Maybe it's revealed that even money and status and fame and power couldn't and wouldn't change somebody. Ooh. Galileo, the visionary. Yeah, that's fine. We don't have to dig into it anymore. Okay. I see a tornado. Chaos theory. Is this the whole if a butterfly flaps its wings on one side of the world? Then hello. Oh, maybe they turned off. Yeah, they turned off because I wasn't using them. I was like, I had it on noise canceling mode, and all of a sudden, it's like we entered the cave. Bottom of the deck is nuclear forces strength. Strength amidst the chaos. Or that's the strength of the wings of the butterfly. We've been seeing butterflies a lot. I think my auntie likes butterflies. I feel like I was gonna get her something. But I didn't see anything. There's this a market by Greenwich. And not the Greenwich market, but there's like an antique market. That's where I got my pocket watch the last time I was there. And they had a whole bunch of them. But I was like, oh, like I'll get a butterfly pocket watch because I almost got her one last time and I didn't. But I didn't see them this time. So I didn't get one anyway. Excuse me. Seven of Swords. Chaos theory. Sometimes the slightest gestures shape and direct the most powerful forces. See, and then when we're talking about the beginnings and power, the origins of power, perhaps the flap of a butterfly's wings might launch a series of events that ultimately lead to a tornado on the other side of the world. Chaos theory is the study of these fantastically complex systems in which predictable events may lead to unpredictable, uncontrollable outcomes. Physicists and mathematicians have begun to trace the links between cause and effect using mathematical models like the Lorentz attractor, which coincidentally suggests the shape of a butterfly. The results of our actions are often complex, powerful, and unpredictable. Struggling to control the distant ripples we launch with every gesture can be a crippling mistake. It may be better simply to ride the wind and follow its course. And then the bottom of the deck was strength. I was like, I already forgot. And this is an 8 strength. We saw an 11 strength in the Spencer's Tarot. Every atom is held together by a tremendously powerful nuclear force that binds protons and neutrons into the nucleus. The strong nuclear force holds the subatomic particles together in the cores of the atoms that compose us. The strength of scientific inquiry allows us to understand how these forces work and how to work with them. When atoms are split and these bonds broken, yeah, that's fine. That's fine. We know it's fine. Um, um, that proton and neutrons in the atom, it's giving very like each sun was self sort of contained, right? I don't know if it's the strength of bonds or bonds that are made stronger by their component. It's like if something is greater than the sum of its parts, and each part is like already pretty great, then the sum of those already pretty great parts is going to be something. It's almost like that's how things can turn into the uncontrollable or the uncontrollably powerful. Right? So just like, excuse me, with the things that money and power and station reveal, if someone is already of impeccable character with indomitable character, indomitable drive, and whatever determination of a bull, then like for that person to have power or money or prestige or whatever is for, again with that impeccable character, is for the thing to eventually happen and you can't stop it. In a way where maybe if someone has impeccable like character but their drive isn't there, then it's like even if they really really are like motivated to do something or care about something, if they won't do anything then nothing changes, right? If someone has that drive but the character isn't there, then it's easy for them to get swept up into the status, money, whatever of it all. And again, things won't change. That's when like someone becomes corrupted by the power of the money because the character couldn't hold up. Or it's just revealed, it's whatever it's revealed in that revelation. Oh, I'm like, wait a second. I didn't get a final card here, did I? I still got cards on the table. No, I didn't. I put them away prematurely. Okay. Let's go to an elemental oracle. Where is that? What is that? Home on the range. Home on the range. This is like, I was like, if I keep singing it in my brain, I'm gonna come upon the title. I never did. It was like, oh, give me a home where the buffalo roam, where the deer and the antelope play. But then my brain went like indoors from SpongeBob. Like there aren't buffalo and deer and antelope roaming indoors unless you live in a zoo. Maybe I don't know. Anyway, ooh, was that biome? The biome connection. To see alliance, symbiosis, binary stars. Maybe we saw alliance and symbiosis, and then the biome and depth lake. The depth of connection, and also the depth of interconnectivity. I guess. Interesting. See, even the lake here, because it's the person under the lake with the castle sort of built on top. Also, with all this talk of like fundamentals, foundations, the basics, it's very much so giving the energy of that symbiosis where people loved orchids and they took them and they couldn't get them to grow, not realizing that orchids have a symbiotic relationship with the mycorrhiza in the soil. Like that's the depth of that connection that wasn't seen, that caused like transplants to perish because the connection wasn't there. And so maybe now I don't know if that's like a scrutinizing eye where it's like the connection isn't there. And that's why the orchids died. And even with like the origins or the beginnings of power, with the staff, regardless of, or not regardless, maybe the different power systems illuminate different things, right? If it's ambient, then that it's like if it's ambient, then there's some kind of deeper connection there that puts it outside. And if it's internal, then there's some kind of source or wellspring for that even deeper inside. When it comes to, again, power, be it economic, political, whatever, it's like this, well, not kind of, sort of. There's deeper connections on one side that's like at the surface, but then it's almost like there's also the lack of connection beneath the surface. Again, for the person of irreparable, or not irreparable, what was it? Indomitable will and impeccable character and all of those things. It's like that's someone that's deeply connected to themselves and more than likely the divine in whatever aspect of the divine they engage, see, perceive, witness, interact. And that's why and how it can be so easy for them to not be changed by them circumstances, to not be corrupted by power, or to become a thief when the opportunity presents itself, and to remain generous and kind-hearted, and as they are, who they're meant to be, and who they're and as they're like needed, as they are, as they're needed, and who they're meant to be. There's a depth there, and it goes beyond the individual. Because here we see the roots of the lake, but then with biome, it's like we see buildings all over the planet. This is but one of them. That's under the surface. And even within that person, there's even more. I feel like that almost calls something to mind. No one man should have all that power. That's what people say. I only know that song because of my best friend's now wife, and I think a road trip we went on in Michigan. Was it that trip? It had to be, because no, that's the only like road trip, girl, and it was it was like every night we were staying somewhere else. I feel like we were constantly on the road, on the move. I'm like, I can't do this. And then they like hiking folk. So they went up the Sleeping Bear Dunes. We made a pit stop to take some pictures, or there was like a trail or something. And then they saw a waterfall in the distance. They hiked to the waterfall. And at that point in time, I'm like, y'all can go ahead. Like, it's fine. Anyway. And maybe coming off of the Dawnbringer of yesterday, I feel like yesterday there was a very like trickstery almost sort of avenue that was being utilized. I think today it's more straightforward, but it can be so incredibly difficult to forget or gloss over or not fully see and realize. Like today, yesterday was like hinted at, teased at. Today, especially by the end, it's more so like it's the solution to a problem, right? We looked at the givens, we looked at what we were given, we looked at what we didn't know. We looked at different equations that were based off of certain governing principles. We substituted what was like there. Usually at the substitution piece, ideally, there'd be one thing you don't know and you know everything else, and you can use the equation to solve for it. But it's almost like there were, and then what is that degrees of freedom? The difference between givens and unknowns. Like if there's only one thing that you don't know and you know everything else, you can solve the equation. But if there are multiple things, then you have to solve the equation as like relative to each other. Now, if you have multiple whatever, then maybe you can figure out a thing. But it's almost like something was presented like part of the solution. Like there's something that you wanted to do, but you didn't know how you would get the money to get the resources to do the thing. Like maybe it's like you don't have money or connections. You don't have resources or connections. You have these two major blockages to whatever, and then you're given one or the other. Either you're given the connection so that you can put together a package to present and start to get investors, which will give you the resources, or you're given the resources. And then with those resources, you can network to find the connections. Like you have an idea, you have the resources to build it, but you don't have the expertise to get it done. Well, since you have the resources, you can like hire someone else to help you with the specifics or to build the thing. Right? It's like that's almost sort of how it's been presented today. Or that's a low hanging fruit. That's one way to interpret it, right? And so it's like when either the resources or the connections start to come in, like when you get back to the basics, like you needed resources and connections for this one thing. Like, hey, now that you're getting resources, maybe it's time to revisit that thing. Or like, hey, now that you're starting to like network and meet people, maybe it's time for that one thing. And to not necessarily be swept up in the connections in a way where it becomes a very almost like a masquerade party type of energy, and to not be so caught up in the resources that you just start doing everything but the one thing that you were really wanting to do. But anyway, it is presented as almost more straightforward today. Ooh, we ain't hit 2 hours yet. Okay. There are things that say it's Thursday. Okay. Oh, wow. Oh, okay. Interesting. We got one card on the ground. Oh, one card on the ground. I think I would say more than anything, that's probably one of my strengths. It's knowing how to learn. And then the more I get to know people, it's like not only do I know how I learn, but I get to know how they learn. Right? Because like I don't know. That's why I don't necessarily like helping people that I don't know. Because I don't know how they like. If I don't know you, I don't know how you learn. I don't know how to present something in a way that maybe like that would be more beneficial to you. And I'm not interested in being a teacher. And it's so funny because I was at Meyer one day, and there was I was like trying to get some orange juice or maybe some oat milk. Back in my oat milk, almond milk, milk alternatives, not through necessity, because I'm not, as far as I know, lactose intolerant. Um, but I was just like seeing what's out there. You know what I mean? And this lady was like, "Donut, like, hey, do I know you? Do I recognize you?" And I'm like, I don't know. She was like, "Are you like a teacher?" I was like, "No, no, no, not me, not me, not me, not me." Anyway, but for people that I know, like, I know how they learn, and then especially if I have the ability, I could present something in a way that would help them learn it. And so it's because of that that like Duolingo works for me. Again, like, and it's so funny how like even Latin was gendered though. And that helps me with the Spanish. The conjugations help me because they don't necessarily, depending on what it is, they don't necessarily hold your hand, which I kind of like. I don't necessarily, I'm not a hugest fan of how like ridiculous a lot of the examples are. Because when I was learning Spanish, it was like the cow is eating a salad at the restaurant, or the bear opened the window. And it's like, animals don't do this. So that for me, until I got like, oh, that's just how they like do whatever. Because what is his name? Falstaff or something like that is a bear. Duo was an owl, and that's it. But animals are like people in Duolingo land. After I got past that, I was like, okay. But I feel like because it's not necessarily presented like a textbook. It is almost more immersive in a way because they kind of sort of just throw you into it. So it's almost like maybe not in exactly the same way. It's almost like how you would pick up a language if you were to just go somewhere, right? And like you hear people like talking, you hear people speaking, and so you kind of sort of through exposure, you pick up like grammar and sentence structure and stuff like that, right? Like, and the Japanese also helped me learn Spanish because there's like the de day or they like I can't even think of something. La granja de maybe not. Um, I don't think jugo de naranja like that. Jugo de naranja like orange juice. They is like no, and it's like possessive. It can be possessive, right? Like boku no tomo, boku no tomodachi, my friend. And then you could say Julia. They I don't see if I. But anyway, learning like words that were part of like prepositions, participles, stuff like that. And then even in Hindi, again, it's I don't know. Back to this, the cards that came out 5749. It's the Time Master and Soul Retrieval. Flipped out. And many paths fell on the floor. Bottom of the deck is the Medicine Wheel. 34, 35, 57, 49. Is this 12, 13? 5 plus 7 is 12. 4 plus 9 is 13. So we do have like a 12, 13. And then 34, 35. Here. Under the Medicine Wheel is the Curse, which is 14. So 13, 12, 13, 14. She's giving. We did start with the title card. Madonna, Vogue. Um, 14:5, the Beloved is behind the Curse, and then the Andean Cross is behind the Beloved. With the lower world, but the lower world reading as the inner world. Like the Medicine Wheel, the Curse, the Beloved, and the Andean Cross. It's like you can even see the Medicine Wheel at the heart of the Andean Cross. It's like once you've integrated, done every part of that medicine wheel, then it starts to like become luminous. And it's like as it's shining, it's sort of like, but this is also giving the energy of that biome connection. And again, sort of like those deep connections that are the roots of certain powers. It's like the Andean Cross is what's happening on the outside, with the medicine wheel being what's happening on the inside. And again, going back to that binary star system, they're solid. They can depend on themselves and what they are in an interdependent community with. That's what makes it interdependent instead of codependent or independent. But it's almost like something that can't be spoken. It's like it can't be spoken, but if you were to look at the basics and the fundamentals, you would sort of get it. And there are many paths to get there. I feel like the Time Master and soul retrieval, especially with the medicine wheel, the curse, the beloved, and the Andean cross. It's like regardless of which natured universe the Time Master lives in, be it the one with ambient magic or personal mana, soul retrieval is on that. There are many paths to that where that Time Master energy sort of advances. It uncovers some of those mysteries. Cool. Because soul retrieval is here, it could be remembrance, right? Again, like remember why you started. Remember your why you started. Remember what keeps you going. Remember whatever. It makes it easier to realign and to remain in alignment and to continue in integrity. And it's almost like integrity and alignment are the biggest assets that one could have. And sometimes they're like the first that's abandoned. But that creates a vacuum in the biome and the environment. And depending on if that vacuum can be overcome, that's what could lead to failure or to like that orchid not thriving or even surviving. Right? It's like if you don't have the mycorrhiza, you have to have another way to help the orchid take up those nutrients. If not, it's going to die. But beyond that, excuse me, maybe to the many paths, it's like with the different kinds of equations and with the different givens and unknowns. Again, like for some, maybe it's resources. For some, maybe it's connections. For some, maybe it's knowledge, right? Maybe they have the resources and they have the connections, but there's some key knowledge that they're missing that they come upon. And again, it's almost like if you keep in mind the why, when you come upon the knowledge, you wouldn't know how to use it. Just like when you get the resources, you would know what it's for. And when you get connections, you would know what to ask for or look for. Maybe sometimes we ask questions and we don't even remember the questions when we're being given information to realize that we've been given the answer. And so it's almost the energy of like an open secret because it's like revealed. It's not hidden. You just don't know or haven't yet recognized. So, anyway, did we get somewhere by the end of that? I don't know. Maybe. Hope y'all have an amazing whatever whenever you see this. I hope you're acting in mind. In I hope you have an amazing whatever whenever you see this. I hope you're acting in alignment to make all that you wish to experience your reality. I hope that whatever you do along your path training may you find. And until next time, I feel like too, it helps us maintain direction when otherwise it may be easy to get lost. And maybe that was strength and chaos theory. I was like, have I seen something like this? Maybe that could be a sense of strength within the chaos of everything in both ways. Like it's a strength that keeps us grounded in times of chaos, but it's also the strength behind how things can sort of play out the way they do with something as seemingly insignificant as a butterfly flapping its wings. Because if a butterfly is going anywhere or doing anything, those wings are probably, moving. So not only because it's always happening, but also because it's, such a tiny creature. Um, but it's like this throughput of like purpose, maybe, that gets things to align in a certain way. And that's why something seemingly like an offhand comment one day can turn into this brilliant idea. Because again, if like knowledge is the thing that's missing, an offhand comment could be the thing that causes the epiphany that puts all the pieces together. But it's because the depth of that connection is sort of like maintained, so that when the information or the resources or the connections or the whatever is needed happens, that's what precipitates the transformation. And it's so funny. Like that feels like when we had the dormancy at the bottom of the deck, but it was like the wildfire is what is the environmental cue for a certain period of dormancy to end. It's almost like the same thing. Like the connections, the resources, the knowledge, whatever, that's like the cleansing storm, that's the wildfire, that is the cue to signal the end of a period of dormancy. But if we miss it, then it's like the thing continues to remain dormant. I don't know. All right, catch you later. Bye.